I have another guest in my studio, a fine gentleman who, briefly, I'll quickly go to him for him to introduce himself, for my viewers to know who he is, so that he can also share what his side of the story when it comes to COVID-19.
And some elements of entertainment. I think that suffices. What else do you want to
I know you like dancing. I don't know how to.
Yes. So that aspect of dancing is also there. So that's why I mentioned entertainment, because it's broad. Okay. There are multiple things that are under my belt, but right. Yeah.
So as it stands now, I just went to Ghana Health Service COVID page, and 7,866 active cases as I speak now, and the new cases are 702. With death to 561 as it stands now. This is from Ghana Health Services page. We know COVID came somewhere ending 2019 and it entered 2020, and everywhere in the world, everywhere you go, COVID-19. To your own best understanding, what is COVID-19? From your personal experience, what will you tell me or my viewers?
It's a virus.
It's a virus.
Yeah, coronavirus it's a virus, and the virus. The reason we have COVID-19 is because it's coronavirus that came out in the year 2019. Okay. Yeah, so it's coronavirus. It's novel, so it is unknown. It's not. We are not used to it. The people within the health institutions are not too conversant with it. Otherwise, they would have already found some form of cure, so to say. So it is on. We are now dealing with it, trying to learn about it to understand how to be able to combat it. So yeah, it's novel. So that's the little I can say. But it's a deadly thing, because at the end of the day, based on knowledge available, once you have it, it weakens your immunity and then opens.
No, Robert, we'll get there.
Oh, you asked what it is.
And so I like the part where you say it's deadly. That alone is a full definition when it comes to COVID-19. Okay. But I'll get to that.
Okay, so it can be deadly.
It can be deadly, exactly. That point I'll raise. So how do you know you've contracted COVID?
Okay, do you want my personal experience or you want the standard information?
No, you.
Okay, so mine, because the hospital told me.
No. So when the hospital told you, there are signs, there are early signs that. So at a point in time, with the signs that they were talking about on the media, the advocacy they were making, which of the signs prompted you that indeed you think, had not you gone to the hospital, how will you know that you are contracted COVID?
I wouldn't have known.
Really?
Yeah.
So my lady, the lady from US says that it started with the normal cold, heads.
Okay, so mine there was no cold.
There wasn't cold.
No.
That is another thing we
so I didn't have cold. People say the sense of smell is lost.
Yeah.
Mine is.
You were still smelling.
I was still smelling stuff.
Hey,
as a matter of fact, I got to a point that my sense of smell was even sharper. Yeah. So so if you're like 12 feet, you bring something that is closer to me, I could smell it, and then I react to it, So mine, it had nothing to do with that. That's what I'm saying. For me, I wouldn't have known.
The hospital?
Yeah, because the hospital had to tell me.
So you went voluntary to go check up, or?
No, I was packed and collected.
Robert, you're packed and collected. Are you an item now?
No, so that should tell you. So I was weak. So I was weak, and then I was put into the car. I was packed.
Okay,
into
so
the car.
There's a sound. Okay.
And then when we got to the place, they tested for COVID, and then the doctor saw me and said, "No, this guy cannot go home. He has to be admitted." And then they put me on admission. And then when they put me on admission, they did the diagnosis and all the elements. I had acute broncho pneumonia. I had gastritis. I had liver inflammation and a few other things. And then they suspected COVID.
Okay.
Yeah. So they started the treatment. In those days when I had mine, I was admitted on 25th of May last year.
Last year May.
So I'm actually almost getting to
a year
COVID anniversary. Anyways, so I was admitted, and when I was admitted, they started treating because they looked at everything totality, and then they thought they should treat COVID as well.
Okay.
Yeah, only for me to realize after 4 days when the results came that it was COVID. So if the doctors had not been that fast and smart, then, you know.
Gone too soon.
Yeah, you know.
We thank God for life.
We thank God for life.
We thank God for life.
Yeah.
Abigail, Abigail, you see, yours, I would say, bless God for the signs you started exhibiting, the normal cold. It got to the point that your sense of smell was something else. But Robert never experienced any of what you experienced. That makes COVID-19 something different altogether, because you earlier on said that should you do the standard signs and symptoms or personally? I said personally because people might be saying all these things, but personally somebody might be also going through the normal life. He or she might not know this. He has contacted, have a contact with this virus then. But you realize that one day you were just weak. And
no, not one day. Well, I had fever. So I had temperature. So my temperature was high.
Okay.
So then I was getting some mild headache, and then I took drugs, and it went, you know, was okay in there. But then what I was feeling heavily was weakness.
Weakness.
And then I was feeling high temperature, and the fact that I couldn't eat. So I think, okay, yeah, so loss of appetite too was there. And the reason why I had a loss of appetite was also because I started vomiting the things I was eating. So it got to a point, I'm like, but why eat when you're going to vomit it? You know, so it was like, you know. Yeah, and then after a while, when I ate, it sat on my chest. And I think that at that point, that's when they said I developed ulcer. So the gastritis is actually ulcer, So then that kind of stuff. And so anything spicy, anything, you know, would just infuriate your system, and then you throw it back out. So it was those elements. And for me, I wasn't so much hearing about these elements as some of the symptoms of
what is
or what people usually said. And it was also around the early stages when this thing had come in. So my story is quite, you know. So that's why the baseline is always important for you to meet a doctor. Okay. And at that point, that was the third doctor I was meeting. Okay. So it's not like when the thing started happening, I was just trying to do self-medication and trying to be the hero.
A doctor just straight?
No, so the first time I went to a doctor, when over a period I realized actually I wasn't feeling too well. Then when I met the first doctor, they gave me all the things, did all the tests, malaria, COVID-19, all the stuff, and then they gave me some drugs. And then they asked me to come after like 5 days. But by the third day, I wasn't getting well. So I'm like, let me just go back to the hospital, hoping to see a different doctor. So that that different doctor could tell me, you know, like second opinion is always good. Exactly. Yeah. So when I went, the person said, but you've just been here, they've taken care of all of these things, so you are clean. And my test confirmed that you are clean, so what's the issue? Then at that time I was very weak, you know, and then the person asked me to, you know, do some chest scan. And then they said, okay, it looks like they're seeing a little bit of some water, something in my system, but when I was leaving, she said she would advise that I just do a COVID test. Okay. So that was the second person, the second doctor. Okay. And then she actually gave me a place I could go to, a private place. But the private place was going to start on Monday. Okay. So I left the place on Saturday. I went through the place, and then they said, I should come on Monday. Okay. So by Monday, that is when I was extremely weak. And then I was taken to a different hospital altogether, and I was admitted.
Admission, were you placed on ventilation or something? Or?
Yes, so when I was admitted, I had shortness of breath. So I think I don't know whether it's SPO, they call it, my oxygen saturation point. It was around 74 or 76, which was low. Low, very. It's supposed to be around, the healthy person is supposed to be range from 96. 96 upwards. And I wasn't even close to, like, you know, I was very low, so they had to put me on. It got to a point I couldn't go off the oxygen support for even 2 minutes, because then it felt like it felt like death, you know. And I experienced this about 2 or 3 times. I think one time the distilled water they put in the cylinder had finished and they had to replace it. Another time the oxygen also got finished, and then they had to change the cylinder, I think twice. And when that happened, you know, the experience was difficult, because then you couldn't breathe, so you just felt like you were dying.
Robert, psychologically, what were you going through? What was the situation psychologically?
Psychologically, I was okay. everything I felt that was negative was physical, but not psychological.
Okay.
Because, so some days before I was admitted, I was sleeping and then I woke up with a song that was singing, like the song was just going on and on in my head. And I'm like, what song is this? So the only thing I remember from the song was, I will be still, know you are God, that's all. And I remember the melody of the chorus, but I didn't know the words.
Okay.
So I just typed, I got up and then I just typed I will be still and know you are God. And then I saw so many lyrics coming out on Google, and then I traced and I checked which one of them, on YouTube, which one of them sounded like what I was singing. Yeah, so I'm like, oh, okay, this is a song. And I checked the lyrics, I'm like, oh, okay. So it looks like something negative is about to happen to me. So this is a message for me. I'm supposed to hold on, and that's it. So now that is what I experienced, and for me, I took it as a message.
As a message.
Okay. Everybody and how they interact with their life.
Exactly.
But for me, I took it as a message because I'm like, where is this song coming out of nowhere into my head? Only one line rings. I check, and these are the lyrics.
Okay.
So the moment I started going through the things, I'm like, okay. So what it means is that there's light at the end of the tunnel. You'll be fine. It's just the phase you're going through. So for me, it was mentally I was okay. I was just waiting to get well. And I was rather monitoring my experiences and what was going on and thinking of, okay, so what is the good that is supposed to come out of this? That's one of the scriptures I like that I always use for everything. All things work together for the good for them that love God and are called according to. Exactly. So for me, then I'm like, okay, so what's the good that's supposed to come from this? So I'm going through fire and I'm just observing what the good that can come out, so I don't miss the good. So that was the mentality I had until I got well.
That is
so that I don't think I had any issues psychologically, and I think that's the best experience I've ever had on the value of hope or the value of confidence that you have a positive end.
Exactly.
Because I've realized that if I didn't have that, then psychologically, everything I would have felt would have been trauma.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I've never really thought of it that way until when I went through and I'm like, wow, this is the value of being sure that there's this unexpected end and you are going to get there and you shouldn't worry, that kind of stuff. So that was one of my best training grounds.
Robert, now we know that things you've been in the hospital admission. How many days did you spend?
In totality, in the hospital, I spent 3 weeks.
3 weeks in the hospital?
Yeah, the reason why I had to spend 3 weeks was because they had to even allow me to go out so that others could come in. Otherwise, I was meant to have stayed there for a longer period. So when I came out from the place and I stayed at home, I spent another 3 weeks just to be able to get well. So in the totality, it was 6 weeks. And then I had like 1 week of initial breakdown before going there, when I was weak and stuff like that. So the whole process, about 7 weeks. Yeah, hospital 3 weeks, home 3 weeks.
So you self-isolated home also for 3 weeks?
No, I self-isolated home just the first week before.
The hospital?
Before the hospital.
Okay.
And then I was in the hospital for 3 weeks, and then when I came home, of course, obviously I was healing. So, the COVID had already left the system. The only thing left were the effect of the other illnesses I was experiencing. So, that was another 3 weeks before I could get back into the space.
Ellen White, Jumo says that some individuals are joking with this pandemic. Please, COVID is real. Please protect yourself. Ellen, thanks so much for that message. If not for anything, we have two people who are testifying for the fact that that COVID we've heard, they contracted with it, and now by the grace of God, they still have life. Robert, I know you are married. How did wifey and the family treated you in that time?
Okay, so when I felt I wasn't well, I started isolating myself. The only person that I was encountering was more of my wife. And that was it. And so, as much as possible, I tried not to encourage her around until it was very necessary.
Okay, but she was able to cope well with that?
Yeah, she was able to cope. But how she managed not to have caught the virus.
That is up to God.
That one there, Charlie.
I wanted to ask you. You see, you're sleeping on the same bed. One had gotten COVID, one didn't get it. As of now, she's still strong and fine.
Yeah, she's fine. So that one there is God, God and His own wisdom and His merciful ways. Because everybody, I had 3 people. There were 4 people in my house. Mm-hmm. None of them got it. My wife didn't get it. Nobody else got it. So, you know.
Hey, at the COVID, viewers, you see, we might take it to be a joke, but I'm telling you for the fact that I know someone who had passed away, personally, had passed away with COVID. So I know what Robert and Abigail are saying. Robert, COVID is real. My viewers are listening to your final words.
What I would say is trust no one, suspect everybody, trust no one, suspect everybody, and wear a mask, because even if it's not for yourself, wear a mask because you might just infect the other person who may be innocent, all right? So, and I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is familiarization. Because you're familiar with people, as in colleague, friends, people in the house, we tend not to wear the mask. So what I'm saying is familiarization is a big problem. Let's try to overcome the familiarization by wearing the mask. And then finally, for my Christian brothers and sisters, I would say to you, trust in the Lord, but lock your house when you are going to sleep because thieves could come. Or trust in the Lord, but lock your car.
Exactly.
It simply means that trust in the Lord, but take the precautionary measures seriously.
That is a good point. That's a good